Hi, this is Richard Kinky Friedman, and you are listening to the podcast Fascination Street.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street.
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with singer-songwriter Jay Brown. In this episode, we go on a journey with Jay Brown from living just outside of Pittsburgh to moving to Atlanta, Florida, owning several muffler stores, and how all of that relates to moving to Franklin, Tennessee to become a singer-songwriter. Of course, we talk about singing and songwriting, some of his career highs, some of the people he's worked with, and he even lets me play Rhodes Scholar, which is a song that fellow singer-songwriter Wood Newton and him did together. He leaves us with a good bit of advice for any new singer-songwriters heading to the Nashville scene. And lastly, Jay tells us where he can be found playing locally in and around the Franklin area. This is my conversation with singer and songwriter Jay Brown.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Jay Brown. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
I cannot complain. You don't happen to be in any way related to a band that used to be called Poor Jay Brown, do you?
No, I've never heard of that, and I don't even like that idea.
Well, the whole thing was like there was this band, and one of the members was a dude named Jay Brown, and circumstances arose and he had to, move on to other things. Everybody was in good spirits. It was all cool, but he moved on to other things. And so they renamed the band Poor Jay Brown because Poor Jay Brown couldn't be in our band.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know there was that many Jay Browns around. I used to be unique.
And he's the one who told me that story, and he was laughing when he did it. So I know it was all in good fun.
Good.
Well, Jay, what I like to do is I like to start from the beginning, man. I like to find out where people were born and raised, and it kind of helps us understand how they got to where they are. So if you don't mind, where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Spent the first half of my childhood on top of Mount Washington, where the inclines go. If you ever seen pictures of Pittsburgh, there's a 800-foot escarpment over the Monongahela riverbank, and they had inclines going up there. And that's where I grew up because my grandfather got flooded out in 1936, and he took my mother and 6 of his other kids out of the second-story window in a rowboat, and he said, "I'll never get flooded out again." So he went to the very top of Mount Washington, and that's where I grew up, in the same house my mother did.
Did he ever get flooded again?
No, sir. No.
So being born in Pittsburgh, I guess now it makes sense as to why you live in Franklin, Tennessee, but have a Pittsburgh Steelers sticker on your guitar.
Yeah, that came with the birth. You have to be a Steeler fan of some sort. I'm not a big sports enthusiast, but I do follow the Steelers and the Pirates.
Sure. Why not? Buddy of mine is super big Pirates fan, though he's never, ever once lived in Pittsburgh, so it's confusing to me.
I met a girl with a Steeler tattoo on her ankle, and I said, "What part of the burg are you from?" And she said, "I've never been there. I just like the Steelers."
So weird. Yeah, my buddy,
Yeah.
he's never lived anywhere except for like Burbank, California, and he's a huge. He flies the Jolly Roger in front of his house on the days that the Pirates play.
Well, our son's a big sports enthusiast, and he does that. Big got the flags and everything. And I raised him in Atlanta. And that poor kid would have to change hats every half inning when the Pirates are playing the Braves.
That's funny. It looks pretty weird when you're driving down Burbank and then all of a sudden you see the Jolly Roger waving in front of somebody's house.
Yeah.
It's pretty off-putting.
Yeah.
So you were born in the same house that your mom was raised in, or you were raised in the same house your mom was raised in. What did you want to be when you grew up, man? What does somebody who lives on the top of that mountain decide they want to do when they grow up, besides get off that damn mountain?
My grandmother's brother, who I called my uncle, was a guitar player, and he just fascinated me from an early age. And that's pretty much all I ever really wanted to do. I had to do other stuff for money, of course, but my goal was always to be a musician, songwriter, and to play. I enjoy playing and entertaining people, and that's what I get to do today.
Who were some of your influences besides your uncle?
Merle Travis, Tom Bresch, Gary Talley from the Box Tops, Lou Christie. He's another Pittsburgher. He actually went to beautician school with my mother. So, yeah, I had a lot of influences. The Stenizzos, I grew up across the street from them, and they had a band called the Contrails, and they had a big local hit called Someone. You can have to look that up. I think it was back in 1967. It was imprinted on me early.
Fantastic. How did your folks feel about that? Did they have plans for you or aspirations on your behalf?
Well, they gave me my first guitar when I was 5, so they supported up to a point. They always hammered into me that I had to make money somehow in order to be able to play the guitar. So,
Sure, yeah. What did your parents do?
my dad was an insulator, asbestos worker,
Oh, fun.
and that's a trade that I went into eventually also.
Yeah, asbestos?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, congratulations, man.
yeah. Still be living. Yeah.
That's crazy. And what your mom, what'd she do?
She's pretty much a housewife, raised 3 kids. She had a beautician license, but she didn't really use it. She tried it, and I think she likes staying home better.
That makes sense. So they didn't necessarily want you to go be a singer-songwriter, but they weren't going to stop you. So that's a good thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I know you said that from an early age and, you always wanted to be, but when did you know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that being a singer-songwriter was something you could do and that you'd be able to pay your bills doing it?
Well, the paying the bills part, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think that far in advance, when I got into it. Because when I started this, when I ate a Big Mac, the whole family was fed.
Yeah.
So I never really thought about the money that hard, but I always knew that I had to have some kind of backing, and I didn't really trust my talent or the fates to just go be an artist.
What do you mean some backing? I hate to interrupt you. What does that mean? I always knew I needed some backing.
Financial backing, and I had to make it myself. Nobody was going to give it to me. So that's what I did. I worked 10, 12 hours a day as an insulator for years so I could get the money to go into business so I could get out of that business. And then once I got the business up and running, I would sell the business, keep the property, and collect the rent. And that enabled me to go play music and still be able to feed the family.
And that plan worked?
So far, knock wood.
That's awesome. What was that business that you started?
Meineke Discount Mufflers in Atlanta. I used to tell the joke that I owned all the Meinekes in the state of Georgia, which technically was true, but there was only one. And I was sleeping on the floor, and my wife and 2 kids were in Pittsburgh back when interest rates were 18%. Ridiculous. You couldn't give a house away.
Man, that was the 80s, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I opened that store in 1980. I signed the contract in 79, and I got the store open in 1980.
Wow. That's rad. And so what made you decide to do that? I mean, you're doing asbestos insulation. Why the switch to, mufflers?
Well, I started in the asbestos because my dad was in the union, and I started that when I was 17. And the business agent told me when he gave me my permit to work, he said, "You're going to hate every day except payday." And the next time I saw him, I said, "You were wrong. I even hate payday." I love the guys, the union brothers. We had lots of fun that way, but the job was miserable. Fiberglass and itchy. Glenn Campbell did that for a while, and he complained the same things about I did. You get fiberglass underneath your fingernail, and it makes it real hard to play the guitar. So I knew I had to get out of that. I had to make a living still, so I figured I'd try my hand in business, and I knew how to weld. So muffler business was an automatic for me.
Interesting. And so your plan worked, and now you're renting this building. And then at what point do you decide to just pick up and move to Franklin, Tennessee?
It's a little more convoluted than that. I had 7 shops, 2 in Florida, 5 in the Atlanta area.
Oh, hold on. So you went from all the shops in Atlanta, 1, to expanding to 5, 6, 7 shops?
Yes.
How cool is that?
I was ambitious, but then I was on a television radio show called The Auto Doctor with a guy named Myron Stein, who was the actual auto doctor. And unfortunately, he wrecked us one day, put us into a telephone pole that shattered C6, C7, my collarbone, and my leg. And I had to get out of the business at that point. So we moved to Florida so I could recuperate.
Wait, this sounds like some sort of a joke, like, so an auto doctor and a muffler repairman are in a car.
Basically, yeah. And
Wow.
the brakes locked up. We went into a telephone pole, and I didn't have a seatbelt on. I was only going about 3 blocks, so I didn't put a seatbelt on back then. And I paid the price for that. I'm still paying for that price. But
You know what they say? Most accidents occur exactly 3 blocks and 1 telephone pole away from your home.
yeah, that's right.
So I heard it. So that meant you had to hang up your welding shoes or helmet.
Made it real difficult to keep working. I was able to keep the payroll going and keep the shops open, which I thought was good. And then I didn't have much to do laying in a hospital bed, so I had a calculator and a legal pad, and I actually realized I could make more money by not running these businesses because I was a terrible businessman. All I wanted to do was play music. So I convinced my wife. I said, we need to sell these things, and we'll retain the property, and that'll provide us an income. And now I can go do what I really want to do. So that in all regards, the accident was a blessing and a curse. It put me on the line that I needed to be on.
From your hospital bed and your calculator and your pencil, you figured out that if you just rented those buildings, you'd make more money than if you actually operated the businesses?
Exactly. And I was carrying paper on the business. I would take a deposit and carry paper at 12% back then, and people were glad to pay it. So, yeah, that provided us an income.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. That lasted all the way up until, do you still have any of these buildings?
We've sold all but one of the properties. And my wife's a 1031 genius. She's a real estate broker here in Franklin. And we have flipped all those properties into houses here in Williamson County. And they're all occupied. And it's actually providing a lot more income than the muffler shops were, because the muffler shops are not highest best use.
So listeners, streetwalkers, a 1031 exchange is where if you sell a property, but like, let's just say a rental property,
Mm-hmm.
if you use those funds to do exactly the same thing, i.e. buy another property of like use, then you don't have to pay the taxes on that money that was the profit from that first 1031.
Exactly.
I mean, from the first property,
Exactly.
right?
You kick the can down the road.
And that happens all the way until now. So congratulations, man. That right there is the American dream.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been very, very fortunate, and I know that, and I'm enjoying it. But we moved down to Florida.
Why?
To continue the journey. Well, I had to recoup, and I'd rather recoup in Florida than to recoup in Atlanta. So went down there and bought a house on Escambia Bay. It was a beautiful house. Twice it was a beautiful house in Escambia Bay, and that's what caused us to leave. We were there for 10 years, 6 hurricanes, and countless no-name storms, and I decided I don't really need to live in Florida anymore. I'm just going to vacation in Florida from now on. So we moved halfway back to Nashville. Our daughter was going to Biltmore College, and I had an office on 19th Avenue, and we just decided, since the kids were all out of school, we decided to move up here because that's where I needed to be. It's worked out real well.
What did you have an office for?
For writing.
Oh, someplace to go just to get away and make it like a real job?
Right. Well, you can concentrate better. And plus, if you're going to grow corn, you got to go out in the field. You got to go where it's grown. And, I would run into people at lunchtime that were my heroes when I was a kid. I found it to be a very friendly town. People would help you, and doors were open.
And that was Nashville proper?
Yes. Yeah, down on Music Row. Mm-hmm.
I interviewed one of my boyhood heroes. I guess he has a fair amount of experience down there on Music Row. Maybe you know him. His name is Richard Kinky Friedman.
Oh, I've heard of him. He ran for president, didn't he?
Governor, yeah, governor of Texas.
Yeah.
He's one of the, I guess, the Texas Outlaws or whatever, with Willie and Waylon and the boys. He's a super cool dude, and so he had a lot to say about Music Row and about how the industry has changed. In all of your years there and in the business, do you feel that the industry has changed?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. For example, when I first went to Nashville, it was about 5 months before Mary and I were going to get married, and she wanted to go have a last fling with the girls on the Jersey Shore.
Man, you scared me.
What's
You
that?
scared me so much right there.
What's that?
Holy moly.
Why?
Because you're like, so I was about to get married. My wife to be wanted to go have one last fling
Oh, no.
with the girls. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you scared me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please continue.
No. She, her and her girlfriends went to the Jersey Shore, and she said, why don't you go down to Nashville and see if there's anything with these songs? Because, friends will tell you they're great. But I figured, I would go to Nashville and I'd play them. If they liked them, that would be wonderful. If they didn't, I'd go home and continue being an asbestos worker. I had a good job.
So this was when?
This was 1975.
Okay.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Now, I didn't know how good I had it till I met some other whiskeys from the city. It turns out a small town and an even smaller batch made me the most headstrong spirit both sides of the Pecos. Call me critical batch, Texas bourbon. Raised by a sailor in Bulverde, Texas, bottled at 110 proof, they took me out of the barrel and didn't know which end to slap. So why don't you come taste the pure definition of bourbon, grain to barrel to bottle, and join our little rebellion. You may all go to the liquor store. I'll be at Chapline Distillery, 30790 Blanco Road in Bulverde, Texas. Ask for CB in the tasting room, and I'll see you soon. That was the Bourbon Talking, Streetwalkers. Chapline Distillery is proudly veteran-owned and operated. Follow them on Instagram and Facebook, or go to chaplinedistillery.com. And maybe I'll see you at the tasting room.
Let's get back into it.
All I did was I knocked on doors. They would say, "Can I help you?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm a songwriter." And one guy laughed as soon as I said that. I got thrown out of a lot of places. This one place, Chuck Howard was there, and he said, "How many songs have you written?" And I had just watched an interview with Mac Davis when he went out to see Elvis, and he said he had 200 songs in his bag. So I said, here I am, I'm a 22-year-old kid, and I said, well, about 200 songs. And Chuck says, play 4 for me right now. So I played 4 for him. If he'd have said play 5, he'd have known I was a liar.
Ah.
But he shocked me. He says, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, same thing I'm doing now. I'm knocking on doors. And he wrote down an address to Sugar Plum Music Studio. And he said, knock on this one at 8 o'clock. We're going to record that one song. I said, well, who's going to sing it? And he said, you are one. Really? I had never sung before, and I didn't really plan on it. I planned on other people singing my songs. But we recorded the next day, and Ed and Patsy Bruce signed my first contract, my first single song contract. They wrote Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. So what was the song that you wrote and sang for him, and he said, we're going to record that one?
It was a song called I Hope You're Happy.
Are you?
It wasn't supposed to. It was a tear-jerking song, but it's about an old girlfriend or, composite girlfriend. You don't want to own up to being a real person.
Sure. Did that get airplay? Like, how did your career take off from that song?
It did nothing. At all.
Nice. Love it.
It just put me on a track that I knew I had to try this. They offered me draw against commission, which typically what they would do back then, they'd maybe give you $50 or $75 a week. And I was making a lot more than that in my trade. So I asked him, I said, can I go home and send you music? And he said, yeah, but you won't. And he was absolutely right. I went home and I got married, started having kids, and got locked into the making a living thing.
So, Hoy, how long were you in Nashville before you decided to go home?
2 days.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 2 days. The first day I got the contract. The second day I did the studio. And then I just went home. I didn't have the courage to think I was going to, make it this way. And I knew I was getting married in 6 months, so I wanted to go do that. I wanted to start a family.
And so how did that translate into your relationship with, tell me their names again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ed and Patsy Bruce.
Got you, Ed and Patsy.
Well, it was really there was no relationship there. They signed that song, so they would get the rights to it, but it never got pushed to my knowledge, and it never got cut.
So they bought the song, I Hope You're Happy? They bought that?
Well, they took the rights to it. They took my publishing rights, and if it had been cut, then I would have got my writer's cut, but it never happened, and they released me about a year later. So, it was good, and it's a typical story. And then I got a couple other cuts later, but, that was years later, and I was an older guy then. I wasn't going to be an artist at that time.
Okay, so you go back home, and you're in the putting food on the table business.
Mm-hmm.
And then when is it that you, for lack of a better term, pick your pen back up and start writing? Or did you ever stop writing?
Well, I never really stopped writing or playing. The funny thing is, that house down in Florida, after a hurricane, I was having a lot of repairs done to it. And one of the contractors told me of a friend of his that played out at the Floribama. You ever heard of the Floribama? The state line runs right through the middle of it.
So the Floribama, folks, is an actual music venue / bar that is located right on the border of Florida and Alabama. My dad lives not too far from there, so he goes there sometimes.
Okay. Well, like I said, I hadn't played out for 15 years. And the friend of the contractor had flipped his car, Jay Hawkins. He broke his collarbone. Funny enough, same thing I did. And he couldn't play.
I don't think you know what funny means.
It wasn't your funny bone. But they said, why don't you go down and take his gig? And I said, well, I haven't played out for 15 years. And they said, we hear you play every day. Why don't you go do it? So they kind of prodded me into it. And I played for 5 hours that night straight. And I just had such a great time. I remembered how much I loved it. And so I went back into it. I go do the Frank Brown International Songwriter Festival at the Floribama every November. And I always run into Jay and I thank him for flipping his car.
Well, I guess being in car accidents has really been...
It goes hand in hand. Yeah, car accidents and small planes and musicians, they all...
But I mean, more than that, you specifically, like every time you get into a car accident, you have some sort of epiphany, or somebody gets a car accident, you have some sort of epiphany.
My big epiphany was that telephone pole.
There you go.
That put things in perspective real quick.
Okay, so fast forward to not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
You play locally around the Franklin area all the time up until now. Like, I think you just found out like I want to say like Bluebird dates in December or something.
Yeah, I have a Bluebird show on December 18th.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
You're in Franklin right now. Do you still have an office where you write?
Well, at my home now.
Now it's at home. Okay.
We live here now, so I just write out of my house.
So you're still writing. You're still playing.
Right.
Do you write with a partner or by yourself or both?
Both. Recently, I've been writing with a guy named Wood Newton, who is just a super writer. He's written hits for the Oak Ridge Boys. He had the song Riding with Private Malone. You may have heard. We just wrote a couple songs down at his studio in the RCA building, which is kind of cool to go in that place because a lot of music was made in that little building.
A lot of history in that building.
Oh, you got that right. Yeah.
So tell me about Road Scholar, which is one of the tracks that you and Wood did together.
Well, I had a friend of mine, Don Bunsold. He was an over-the-road truck driver, and I always called him the Road Scholar. And he's actually the first person that I personally knew that died of COVID.
Wow.
So I told Wood the idea, and we put it together one morning. Actually, we finished it before lunch. What you always want to do as a songwriter, you want to get songwriting out of the way so you can go eat lunch and drink some beer and talk, So that's what we did. I wished I'd have done it while Don was alive, but we just didn't get to it. But his family's heard it and they love it, and we try to honor him. If you have it, a truck driver brought it to you. It's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking about essential workers, and I don't know if there was any more essential than a truck driver. Even doctors and nurses couldn't do their jobs if truck drivers didn't bring them all their stuff.
That's right. So I just wanted to honor the truck driving profession and Don at the same time. So we wrote that. Do you have a copy of that? I think you might have a copy of it.
I do have a copy, and if that's okay with you, can I play it here on this episode?
Yeah.
That way everybody can get a chance to hear it and enjoy it as well and pay homage to Don.
Yeah, he was a great guy. One line in the song is, he knew the state to state like the back of his own hand, and that was Don. He knew where he was at. You could have planted him anywhere in the USA. He'd have been able to find his way through because he'd been there before. And he drove a tandem truck. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're kind of hard to hold on to.
What is a tandem truck? What is it? Oh, it means two trailers?
Two trailers, exactly, yeah.
Gotcha.
That's a train. Yeah, he was pulling a train.
That's crazy.
He drives an old Peterbilt, the color of two-ball blue. Hauling freight down the interstate, trucking stuff to me and you. He knows every pretty waitress who ever gave him some sweet tea, coffee, black. They all like to call him home. He's a road scholar, not an educated man, but he knows his way from state to state like the back of his own hand. His brother brothers went to college, but that didn't fit his plan. He's a Rhodes Scholar, truck driving man. He can make it through a snowstorm safer than the U.S. mail. Cut across the desert over asphalt hot as hell. He can climb the Rocky Mountains. His truck has what it takes. Then barrel down the other side to the smell of burning brakes. He's a Rhodes Scholar, not an educated man, but he knows his way from state to state like the back of his own hand. His brothers went to college, but that didn't fit his plan. He's a Rhodes Scholar, a truck driving man. Not an educated man, but he knows his way from state to state, all around this land. His brothers went to college, but that didn't fit his plan. He's a Rhodes Scholar, a truck driving man. He's a Rhodes Scholar, truck driving man.
Okay, so you and Wood did Rhodes Scholar, and y'all put that in the studio, and that was great. You guys recently went to the studio with another tune from the two of you, right?
Yeah. Girls and Jeeps. Yeah.
Hey, what's that about?
Girls and Jeeps.
Oh, we'll get right on out of town.
Wood and I just did a show last night together. He's fun to play with. We had a great time. We're down at the Commodore in Nashville.
How did you and Wood get hooked up together? And also, what is the inspiration behind Girls and Jeeps?
Basically, girls and Jeeps. In the summertime, the tops come down on the Jeeps. And
on the Jeeps. Gotcha.
Yes, of course. I wanted to specify. Yes. But, I just enjoy watching young, pretty girls in their Jeeps, and they're having fun. And it seems like more and more you see girls in the Jeeps more than you see the cowboys anymore. They're kind of taken over. Even in the truck driving business, you see more girls in the semi-trucks than you do guys anymore.
What do you think about that?
It's fine with me.
That's pretty crazy, I think. I mean, it's cool, but where are all the guys going?
Mr. Mom, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So how did you and Wood Newton hook up?
There's a place in Nashville right on Music Road called Bobby's Idle Hour. It's basically the last dive bar left on Music Row. Before they moved to this new location, I used to have a regular Wednesday afternoon slot, and my little Shih Tzu would sit on my feet on the stage and stare out at the people while I played. I met Wood down there and met quite a few other writers down there. Wood and I just seemed to hit it off, and I threw him a title one day, and he said, "Man, we need to write that." And I said, "Okay." So we're off.
What was that title?
It Ain't Your Daddy's Weed No More.
Oh, boy, is that the truth. Oh, man. Yeah, you guys need to do a duet with old Snoop. Get that thing going on. Wow, that's really cool. So you and Wood, I guess y'all work well together, and y'all play together and write together. And
yeah, I really enjoy writing with Wood. I write with several other people too, but Wood's really easy to write with. He's got his little studio right there too, and we just pound them out.
What do you do with all these songs? Are you trying to sell them? Are you trying to, loan them? I don't know. Are you just writing them for?
I have a song plugger.
What is that?
Well, he gets paid to play my songs for people looking to record songs for their artists.
Shut up. That's a job?
Yes, it is.
So hold on. But this is a person who performs your catalog to prospective buyers?
Yes.
Holy moly.
There's a tip sheet in Nashville, and it'll tell you who's looking for what. So like Garth is looking for upbeat stuff, or Blake Shelton's looking for, and Chris Keaton's the name of my plugger. He'll go and play the songs for them because he can get into the door that I can't get into. There's several levels in this business, and that's his level right there. It's his expertise is getting my songs in front of the right people.
So it's just say he sells a Jay Brown song to, I don't know, Tanya Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
Does he get a percentage or just a flat fee, or how does that work? No numbers.
Yeah, he gets a small percentage of my publishing for the first 2 years, and then it reverts back to me. So I don't feel like I'm giving up too much.
Sure, no, that's rad.
When I got my first serious contracts here with BMG, they took all my publishing.
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah, I'm nobody to argue that fact because I'm nobody. So, it's typically the same story. People lose their publishing in the beginning, and then they get a little more seasoned, and they're not so willing to give up the publishing. You grow from that. You learn.
Yeah, I interviewed a duo from the 90s. They were a rap duo from the 90s, and they had a couple of really big songs, and they were touring it and, making okay money or whatever. But then somebody clued him into the fact that they were supposed to be getting 80% and their manager was supposed to be getting 20%.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Instead of the other way around. And then they had to get lawyers and also firearms involved in that whole deal. So,
oh, I don't do that.
yeah, so things could always get worse, I guess.
Well, we raised an attorney, so I stay away from the firearms.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
Congratulations. Well done. Yeah, because he can make more money if he's not having to defend you.
That's right. Exactly.
Jay, where do you play around in the Franklin area? Where could people just happen upon you?
Usually on a Tuesday night, you might find me down at Kimbrough's. It's a little house that Will Jordan took over and he turned it into a music venue. It's a little bungalow, and it's got the stage there and everything. And we've done lots of shows there. Gary Talley from the Box Tops, Dave Hoffner, who played the piano on Wildfire. That's his soliloquy. Tom Rohde, Charlie Morgan. Elton John's drummer was our drummer for 3 years. We did Homes to Our Troops. Gary Talley and Friends was the title of it. Gary is the one that played the beginning of the letter. Bum, 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 bum. Give me a ticket for an airplane.
Yeah.
I was going to junior high school when that song was out. So, like I said, being able to play with your heroes is just incredible.
That's funny because I was in junior high school when the parody version came out.
I don't think I've heard that one.
Oh, yeah. He's like, oh, man, I can't remember it. But it's like, got me a ticket for an airplane and going to be on the Wheel of Fortune game. Oh, it was called Vanna Pick Me a Letter. Vanna Pick Me a Letter. No one does it any better. I dream about you.
I got to look that one up.
Get me a ticket for an aeroplane. Got to get on the Wheel of Fortune game. I just got to win. Spin the wheel again. Oh, Vanna, pick me a letter. Bankrupt? What do you mean bankrupt?
Yeah, that was way back in the mid 80s.
Here's an example. Because of my association with Gary, he was able to bring these big writers and big performers. And there was one night where I'm playing Everlasting Love with the two writers who wrote that song.
Shut up.
Yeah. Matt Gaden and Buzz Cason. I just felt incredible. I mean, nobody else knew what was going on except me. I just, in my mind, I was going nuts.
That's fantastic.
Couldn't believe it.
Jay, where can people find you on social media?
Well, Reverb Nation would be a good place. Just go to reverbnation.com/JBrown, JAYBROWN. On Facebook, on Spotify, Apple, all the platforms. But Reverb Nation is where I put the new stuff up. It's a lot easier to get to, and you can buy tracks if you want, or just listen to them.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jay, as we're heading out, is there anything I didn't ask you about or we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today? Did I miss anything?
I'll think of 14 things as soon as we hang up.
As soon as we hang up. All right. That's the deal.
I just feel real fortunate to be able to do what I'm doing, and people are happy to hear it, and that makes me feel good. That's what we should be doing.
Somebody once asked Willie Nelson if he had any advice for singer-songwriters moving to Nashville, and he said, turn around. Do you have any advice for singer-songwriters moving to Nashville?
Well, yeah, I do. I would say get a good job first. When you come to town, make sure you can eat, and then you can play. Unless you're just somebody like Glenn Campbell or Tom Bresh or somebody just blow you out of the water. You know, if you have a talent you're trying to develop, make sure you can eat while you're developing that talent.
I think those are wonderful words to go out on. A great piece of advice. Jay Brown, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic songwriting schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. I enjoyed it. It
was 100% my pleasure. And you have a great rest of your week.
You too, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.